So it finally happened. We got not just one, but two brand new Helix products from Line 6. And today I want to share with you what's new with these units. I want to tell you what I think is great about them, share some of my thoughts about them. And I'm also going to share some of my concerns going forward with these. So let's get into it. This is the Helix Stadium and the Helix Stadium XL, and these are Line 6's brand new next generation Helix products. The larger Helix Stadium XL is going to be available this fall for $21.99, and the smaller Helix Stadium is going to be available in winter, and that's going to retail for $17.99. Now, both of these units have the same power inside of them, they have the same touch screen, and you're gonna have a very similar experience using either of them. The main difference being the larger unit, the XL, has the expression pedal and it also has the scribble strips so you can see what label is on each foot switch. Now, I think the XL version has a few more inputs. It has a few more inputs and outputs on the back, so you'll have to take a look at the two and see what works for your needs. So about a month ago, I started hearing on social media about this 10th anniversary live stream event that Line 6 was having for the Helix. And they were really promoting it pretty hard. They were inviting people like Tim Pierce to host it. They were inviting a bunch of creators out to fly out and be there in California for it in person. And a lot of people started speculating, hey, this has got to be more than just an anniversary. Maybe there's gonna be a new product at this event. So at this event, we got Helix Stadium. So let's jump in and talk about what are the new features, what can you expect when this launches in the fall. The first new feature that they highlighted for Helix Stadium is their new Agora amp modeling technology. And the way that they described it is with all this new power in this unit, they're able to just model the amp much better, down to the components, down to the tubes, and really create this more high definition image or model of the amp and all the components within it. They didn't show any sound samples, but the way that they described it sounds like we're gonna be taking the amps that the Helix had, but taking them to the next level. And I think when the Helix Stadium launches, there's going to be 16 Agora amp models in that unit. And so these are gonna be the next level of amp models for Helix. So the next thing that they highlighted with Stadium is this hype control. And the way I understand it is you have the exact model of the amp with all of its quirks, all of its shortcomings, whether it's an old vintage tube amp that has issues when you turn certain things up or certain things down, and morphing from that to a more idealized amp that has no bad sounds in it, that's more of a perfect sound. And this hype control lets you kind of blend between the two. And it might let you just achieve some sort of tone that you have in your head and just focus or take away some of those negative aspects when you create an exact model of an old vintage amp. So the next big feature that they announced that Stadium is going to have inside of it is their proxy capture or cloning technology. And they did say that this isn't going to launch until sometime next year. So I believe that'll be some sort of firmware upgrade that the Helix Stadium units get. But this is their version of what Tonex does, of what Quad Cortex does, where you can capture an amp, you can capture a cab. And they did mention that it might be also be able to capture effects and other sound devices. They were a little bit vague there of what that meant, but they mentioned that it would be able to capture things beyond just amps, cabs, and drive pedals. So maybe you'll also be able to do reverb IRs or something like that, I'm not sure. But another big part of that is they mentioned that all of the processing when you're making captures will be done in the cloud. So you'll be able to use the unit and do other things while your capture is being made in the cloud. This is kind of a new thing, it seems like, so we'll see how that works in practice. maybe that's something that can upgrade over time that will make your captures happen faster and make them sound better. So the next big thing that they announced is the 8-inch touchscreen that both of these units will come with. And this is something that people have been asking for a while, but I think what's cool about it is they didn't change the workflow. You can still use the knobs and the same sort of UI that has worked really well on Helix, but this just allows you to access things quicker. And they also did show off a focus view, I think they called it, where you had 4 different quadrants on the screen for an effect or for an amp, and you could use those to slide your finger across and adjust multiple parameters all at once. And I don't think they said this or not, but this might be a way to also do something like the flux feature on the HX1, where with these 4 different quadrants, you might be able to set them each to something and then have a foot switch morph between the different quadrants. So I'm excited to see what you can do with that, and it seems really cool. Another big feature in these units is they have upgraded the inputs, the outputs, they've upgraded the analog to digital conversion. So with these units, you're getting a lot higher quality converters, and the preamp and everything in them is going to be a lot better. And so if you take a preset that you have on your Helix, load it into Helix Stadium, it's automatically going to sound way better. It's going to react way better because of that conversion, because of those preamps. And you can head over to their website to see all the specifics of that, but it's good to see that they didn't just keep the same stuff in there. They've really put the thought and the time into upgrading that. So immediately you will get a better sound, even if you're using the same preset as before. Along with the touchscreen, they showed off this new showcase mode that allows you to play tracks. It allows you to pull in a song and isolate different parts, whether it be bass, drums, guitar. It allows you to do a bunch of cool stuff, whether you want to be able to control lights or control different MIDI things in your stage show. There's a bunch of cool stuff you could do with it, and I'm sure it's just scratching the surface of what they showed of what people will be able to use it for. So my first impressions of Helix Stadium is that it looks really awesome. I think they really took what the community was asking for and they put that all into this unit. Seems like they have considered everything at this point. And for me, I really just want to hear, what does it sound like? How does the capture tech work? What does it all look like in practice? I would love to be able to test one of these out. So I'm excited to hopefully get my hands on one at some point. But I do have a few concerns with them. My first concern is I wish the capture technology was launching alongside of it. Maybe that means it's just not there yet, but it kind of worries me that it's not coming out until the future. They said 2026, but you know, what does that mean? But I do know and I do trust Line 6 because they have been putting out so many firmware updates over years and years and years for all of their units, and I know that they're gonna be good with that with this new Helix Stadium family. Another thing about these new units that kind of concerns me is just the sheer volume of new features and things like the showcase mode and the focus view and being able to add notes and things into each of your presets. All of these things that they're working on adding, and just being afraid that there's just so many things that it gets bogged down and none of these things are as great as you want them to be. I would rather just an amazing amp modeling, amazing effects, and amazing capture technology. But I hope I'm wrong with that. I hope all this stuff is really great. I hope all of the UI and the way that you interact with it is really great, and it certainly looks like it is. So we'll just have to wait and see. And the final thing that concerns me a little bit with these units is the price. $2,200 for the flagship unit seems like a lot to me. I know that's not a lot when you consider some other products that are in the market. And maybe it's a business decision to say, we want to keep the old Helix line at a lower price and we need to slot these in at enough of a jump of a price to where people will still buy the old Helix. It's probably some kind of decision like that. And another thing with that is I wish the smaller unit had the scribble strips. I realize that's probably a price thing and wanting to differentiate it from the larger unit. But for me, I like to have my volume pedal on the left. So it'd be cool to be able to configure it that way, but I'm sure there's not a ton of people like me out there that like to have it on the left, but I'd like to have it on the left with the scribble strips. But I'm excited as we get closer to the launch of these units. What do they actually sound like? How do all of these features and things work in practice? So we'll see. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Helix Stadium? Is $2,200 too much? Is there anything missing from these units that you were hoping to see? What do you think about all the new features? Let me know in the comments below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.